Welcome to this explainer. Right, today we're diving into something wild. We're going to decode a 2,500-year-old Buddhist text to uncover what is basically an ancient political thriller hidden right inside a cosmic ghost story. We're looking at the Janavasabha Sutta, a really fascinating piece of early Buddhist literature, and we're breaking down exactly what it meant for the survival of one of the world's biggest religions.
Now, the big question we've got to keep in mind here is this. How do you ensure a religion survives a literal political revolution? It's a massive challenge, right? Well, as you'll see, we're going to explore how early Buddhism used this spectacular nested narrative to adapt to the violent rise of the Magadhan Empire, ultimately securing its own survival. It's an absolute masterclass in adapting a radical spiritual message to the really harsh realities of worldly power.
Okay, Section 1, the missing Magadhan disciples. So, the whole story kicks off with a very glaring earthly problem, an omission by the Buddha that made his close attendant, Ananda, incredibly anxious. You see, the Buddha was actively listing out the heavenly rebirths of deceased followers from 10 different nations. He's talking about the Kasis, the Kosalans, the Vajis, the Malas. You get the idea, telling everyone exactly where these devotees ended up in the afterlife. But he conspicuously leaves out the devotees from Magadha. And this is a massive deal, because Magadha was the exact place where the Buddha actually achieved his awakening. Just imagine the anxiety this caused his followers there. Ananda realizes that if the Buddha doesn't declare their fate, the Magadhan devotees are going to be completely disheartened. Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter so much? Well, because this omission was politically terrifying. Magadha's beloved, righteous King Bimbisara had just recently been murdered by his own son. The social order that protected the early Buddhists was literally crumbling around them. The betrayal and passing of King Bimbisara brought this immediate, terrifying threat of war and chaos. The Buddhists desperately needed stability, and they needed to know their place in this violently ascendant new empire.
Which brings us to Section 2, the supernatural reveal.
After Ananda practically begs for answers about these forgotten Magadhans, the Buddha goes into a deep meditation across dimensions, trying to find out exactly where they went. Suddenly, this invisible, incredibly beautiful spirit appears to him. The spirit calls himself Janavasabha, which literally translates to Chief of Men. Now, that is an incredibly exalted title. It immediately signals to the Buddha, and honestly to us, that this is absolutely no ordinary spirit.
And then, the spirit drops a massive twist. He declares, "I am Bimbisara, Blessed One." He actually reveals himself as the ghost of the murdered King Bimbisara. But he hasn't just survived death. He's been reborn as a magnificent spirit, perfectly straddling the line between earthly monarch and heavenly being. It's brilliant. He's exactly the kind of bridge the early Buddhists needed between the chaotic human realm down below and the divine order above. Moving right along to Section 3, a meeting of the gods.
So, Janavasabha tells the Buddha he hasn't just popped by to say hello. No, he's come to share a secret he learned from a massive cosmic council that was recently held in the heavenly hall of clear right. Picture the sheer scale of this for a second. It's a grand assembly of gods, perfectly boxed in by the four great kings at the compass points. You've got Dhatārate in the east, Virulaka in the south, Virupaka in the west, and Vesavana in the north. It's this highly structured, flawlessly ordered divine kingdom, which is, of course, a stark contrast to the completely chaotic political situation back down on Earth in Magadha. At this council, the gods are doing something really fascinating. They're rejoicing, literally glowing with power, chanting, "The heavenly hosts swell, while the Titan hosts dwindle." And why? Because human disciples of the Buddha are living good, ethical lives and are being reborn in heaven, successfully swelling the divine ranks. This transactional dynamic is just incredible. The message here is crystal clear. Following the Buddha isn't just good for your soul, it literally powers up the gods.
Section 4, the divinity Sanankumara appears. This whole joyful heavenly assembly sets the stage for a seriously dramatic entrance. Out of nowhere, a magnificent light outshines all the other gods, signaling the arrival of the high divinity, Sanankumara. Now, because his true divine form is way too powerful and actually imperceptible to the lower gods, Sanankumara has to go through a highly specific sequence just to interact with them. He manifests a solid visible incarnation, takes the form of a beautiful youth, and then just sits cross-legged in the sky, looking exactly like a brilliant golden statue. Then he performs what is absolutely a mind-bending display of psychic dominance. Sanankumara simultaneously manifests 33 different life forms to sit on the couch of every single god in the assembly at the exact same time. This makes each god think the high divinity is sitting right next to them, speaking to them exclusively. It's the ultimate show of divine authority and honestly, some sci-fi level magical power.
All right, Section 5, a heavily spin on Dhamma.
Once he has everyone completely captivated with that magical display, Sanankumara delivers a version of the Buddhist teachings that seems, well, deliberately modified. Just look at this contrast. The Buddha's ultimate teaching is normally focused on total extinguishment, escaping the cycle of rebirth completely. But Sanankumara uniquely alters the message. He pitches a version focused on worldly psychic power and continuing heavenly prosperity. He speaks to the gods about the basis of psychic power for amplification and transformation, not liberation. What you should really take away from this is that the text is using the gods as a proxy for earthly kings. It's showing them that Buddhism doesn't just mean abandoning the world. It can actually align perfectly with the kind of prosperity and power that kings care about. He continues this theme by outlining 3 unique opportunities for happiness. And notice how practical they are: leaving sensual pleasures, calming coarse processes, and understanding skillful versus unskillful behavior. He notably skips the ultimate liberation in favor of achieving these more practical, manageable, skillful states. I mean, think about it. Kings don't want their citizens completely checking out of society to go meditate in a cave forever. They want them calm, orderly, and skillful. It's a very grounded, accessible version of the teaching, perfectly suited for laypeople, administrators, and royalty.
To cap off his divine endorsement, Sanankumara drops a staggering and, honestly, a highly specific statistic. He reveals that a massive 2.4 million Magadhan devotees have reached the stream enter stage, meaning they're safe from lower rebirths. Boom. Finally, Ananda's anxieties answered. The Magadhan disciples weren't forgotten at all. Their numbers are literally astronomical. Even if this 2.4 million figure is a bit of a political exaggeration, it was the exact awe-inspiring reassurance the Magadhan people needed to know their devotion was wildly successful.
And our final section, Section 6, the spread of early Buddhism. Let's pull back the curtain on this entire ancient text for a second to reveal why this elaborate story was told in the first place. This narrative served as a brilliant political tool. It reconciled the Buddha's radical, world-renouncing teachings with the very practical needs of the ascendant, power-hungry Magadhan Empire. It reassured the new kings that supporting Buddhism wouldn't weaken their empire with asceticism. Quite the opposite, actually. It would bring divine endorsement, social order, and celestial prosperity.
Now, to ensure everyone actually believed this, the text builds a flawless chain of custody. It traces its authority from the very top, straight down, starting from the high divinity Sanankumara, passing to the great King Vesavana, to the ghost of King Bimbisara, to the Buddha himself, then to Ananda, and finally broadcast to the rest of the world. This inception-like layered storytelling was designed to guarantee unquestionable legitimacy to the public. Because, let's face it, if the highest gods and the ghost of your beloved king endorse something, who are you to argue with it? And the craziest part? The text actually openly admits its own purpose at the very end. It concludes with this quote, "And that's how this spiritual life has become successful and prosperous, well proclaimed wherever there are gods and humans." It's an incredible meta moment. The ancient text boldly and deliberately admits that this entire myth was a strategic masterpiece. It was crafted specifically to make the religion wildly popular and secure its survival in a rapidly shifting political landscape.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought. We've just seen how a 2,500-year-old movement used a brilliant mythic narrative to adapt to a new political reality. So look around today. How might our modern leaders and institutions still be relying on hidden, mythological narratives or the illusion of divine endorsement to claim unquestionable authority over us? It's a strategy as old as empire itself. Thanks for joining me on this explain, and keep questioning the narratives around you.